Fenton, my colleague, is out on the road, and so this morning I am going to be your host. Our technical support is Joe Oliver and Jeremy Stroud, and I believe Jeremy is on deck today to help. So if you have any questions or comments in terms of if you need any help, please copy down Jeremy's email if you're not hearing. Of course, if you're not hearing this, you can't hear me say it. But if for some reason you aren't able to do it, please chat. If there's some problem, please put it into chat, and Jeremy will get right on it. So we welcome everyone. And like I say, a few more folks are coming. So we wanted to acknowledge our sponsors. This program is possible because of the support from the Office of the Secretary of State, and also because the library development here at the Washington State Library is funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So they are responsible for us being able to put on this continuing education program monthly, which we've been doing for close to 7 years now. It's not quite 7 years, but we've been doing it for a fair amount of time. So we'd appreciate now if you would help us out a little bit. In addition, this time we'd like to know your name, your library organization, and what appealed to you about this topic. So if you could start typing in chat right now, we'd really appreciate it. So please do that. Please go ahead and type. I see some people, but yes, please, I don't see everybody. Please start typing if you would, your name. We really need to know for our yes, our first session, July, he just went back and looked, was July 10th. We need to know this for our OFM people. They like to know where people are from, and we're glad. Helen, welcome from Michigan. Well, that's great. You have to maintain it. Wonderful. Okay, well, we're seeing some other folks. I would sure appreciate if everybody would say something. Chris has joined us. Chris, we have just asked everybody. He is probably still getting his audio, but we'd like to know about, where you're from and what appealed to you about this topic. Okay, Janet is Burlington. There we go. She says, we have a new website. Our old site was out of control on the back end as far as organization. We didn't want to see that happen with the new site. And Carly is from Spokane, and she maintains their website. Great. So she would like some extra help. Let's see if any other folks have. Christy, we need to hear from you. If you would at least tell us where you are from, we'd sure appreciate that. Location would be great. And Diane, we know that you are at Kittitas Library and are interested in improving library services there as a member of the community, library community. We know that. So if we could just get a couple other things that will help our, please type that in as we go forward, and we'd really appreciate it. And Chris, what we asked folks to do was type in, I know of course that you're from Longview, but if you would type in what appealed to you about this topic, we'd really appreciate it. Our speaker is looking at these so she can tailor her remarks. And Paula, we just see someone else has joined us. And so, Jeremy, could you type in what, we're going to move on from this pretty quickly. So if you would greet Paula and maybe send her a message as to what we'd like her to do, that would be great. All right. Well, we're always cognizant that we know that lots of folks have hour increments and you have to get going for, to get on the desk. So we're going to move along from that and hope that we keep, yep, there we go. All right. So now I would like to introduce you to our next our speaker, and this is Krista Worrell. And after serving for 14 years as a public librarian in community libraries and virtual settings, Krista was asked to join the Snow Isle Library's Communications Department. She was assigned to a special project to bridge the gap between public services and online communications to increase online engagement. So she's been working on this since 2013. And she's been defining this new position as a public services project manager and pursuing a certificate in project manager with as a PMI. The original content for this presentation was put together for OLA in 2013, and it was also presented at the Washington Medical Library Association conference in 2013. And it's also evolved. As we all know, PowerPoints, if you've done it, you keep updating them as you go along. And her goal today is to use a case study and propose a sample project process for you to use when you need to get something done. And so with no further ado, I would like to turn the mic over to Krista, and Krista, take it away.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Jeremy, for your help and the nice introduction. So I'm reading as you log in why you're here, and it looks like we have a lot of shared challenges. We have a lot of content on our sites. We are helping other people manage their sites or trying to do it ourselves. Maybe we have limited resources. And again, this is just a case study of something that happened in Snow Isle, but hopefully there's some overarching ideas about the process that we went through that will help you move forward in your own organizations. So I encourage you to use the emoticons and hand raising and all of the fun things over there in the sidebar throughout our time together. Your engagement is very important to me, and I will pause regularly to allow for questions. I'll have some questions for you, and I hope you'll have some for me. So when I ask for those questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and Carolyn's going to help me monitor the chat for those. Okay. So back in 2000, so again, I think I talked about this case study is from Snow Isle. This is the research section only of our site. So we're a pretty large public library organization in Snohomish and Island counties. And there was a lot of different ownership at this time. We didn't have one single owner. We did have a web services manager who also did our catalog. But it wasn't in the communications department. And there wasn't a single voice or a single owner. So those responsibilities were kind of parceled up. And because of that, it grew very organically, which is not always a bad thing. But when we took a step back and looked at ourselves in 2012, we had 30 subject categories. We were getting new requests and new ideas for subjects all the time. We were maintaining this list of recommended websites that we had already winnowed down from 2010. Literally, we had over 1,000. So we had it down to around 150, but they still weren't being used. And when we did a usability study with our users, we knew we needed to do something because we were getting a lot of user feedback. We found out that they didn't know what to do on that page of our site. They didn't really understand what they were supposed to do. And yet we had a budget of $500,000 that we're spending on databases and trying to give them access to. So we knew we needed to do something. So we needed a group of people. And I see a lot of you you say that you're responsible for maintaining your site, and I know that can feel like you're on an island by yourself. To make big changes, maybe you need a team. So, and if you're going to start this or any project to some extent, you're probably going to be the one to own it, to give it passion, to drive it forward. This is all about leading from within, but you can't do that without some others, right? So when you're thinking about what you want to do, you need to think about who your sponsor is. So who really owns this? Where does the buck stop? You want to include some people with big ideas. You also want to include some people who can get things done, who can do the work. That's not always the same, but not always mutually exclusive. And you want to give them a purpose. Why are you doing this? Sometimes we think the purpose is, oh, just to make it better. But that purpose discussion is really important to have with your team because it really ties the work back to the strategy, to what is important to your leadership. So now I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to use the little check box. I think I can use my pointer and point to it. Right here, use this checkbox. And if you would, tell me, do you know your library's strategic focus, plan, or direction well enough to create a purpose for your work, to tie something back to that strategy? So give me a yes if you feel like you know it, and give me a no if you need to check it. That's great, and I appreciate your honesty, especially Janice saying, no, you don't know it. I certainly didn't at this time, and not necessarily because I wasn't looking for it, but we didn't necessarily have one. Our strategic plan was very complicated and very large, and I wasn't really sure if I even needed to. And I've since learned, wow, once I can tie my work back to our strategic focus or strategic plan, whatever it is that leadership has communicated, I'm going to get a lot more support and get things done a lot faster. So here's the first step of your action plan. I want you to just take a minute and record for yourself who might be on the team. So think big. You need some help to make some change. And if you wouldn't mind, you can write that down, jot it down wherever you're working. And if you put some of those in chat, that would be great. Who might be on your team? Anyone want to write in chat? Any ideas? There you go. You need someone with some skills. Someone from management, so you have that support, resource support. There's a great example of a nodal team. You've got a mix of people who are in the front line in front of customers, support services who are doers, IT who understand the technology. Great. So I'm also wondering, you might think, oh wait, I have a team of one. Oh no, that's not going to work. Sometimes that's all you can get, and you are the team. But hopefully you can at least get someone else to bounce ideas off and help you with the work. I think our team ended up having 6 to 8 people on it. Also, those team members that you're thinking of, are they workers, or are they stakeholders, or are they both? And now I'll also pause. Do you have any questions at this point about me, or what this webinar is about, or my case study? Any questions? You can raise your hand, and Carolyn will grab you. Okay.
Don't be shy.
So the next,
folks, don't be shy. This is supposed to be as interactive, and we've got a nice intimate group, so we can do quite a bit of discussion if we wish.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Carolyn. So once you have a group, your people that you're working with this, you need to think about who is your audience. So we always said, well, we've got a staff audience, and then we have 672, I think it's closer to 680,000 now public that we serve. We'd always talked as if this was our audience. But what about targeting that work? And when we got down to who we really were doing this work for, it narrowed. And who you serve or who you want to get a message to might be different, though not of varied value. So each page on your site might have a different audience. And it's good to do some audience research. It is costly, I'll admit that, because it takes a lot of time. But there's also a high return on that investment.
I'm going to interrupt with a question here. This is Carolyn. When you're a one-person library, I mean, that is, when you say that, it's kind of like really daunting. Do you have any easy tools for like somebody who doesn't have, I mean, Snow Isle is huge. You guys have the money. Yeah. You can do it. So if you're like in a smaller library, are there some web tools or something that you can go out and do this for, like SurveyMonkey? Are there some examples? If SurveyMonkey is all you've got and it's you, what can you do?
Well, again, I think you need to think about who your audience is. So if it's just you and you've got a free SurveyMonkey, then you need to get the email addresses of some members of the community that you're trying to reach and send them that survey. And that's certainly free, and it takes the time to get those email addresses, which you can always use volunteers to help with, because you're not working with circ records or anything private like that. You're just looking for some help. So I think that volunteers are a great resource here. And there might be people in your community that know a little something about this that you could enlist and then grow your network. Does that answer your question, Carolyn?
That does. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, doing an intercept survey where you're paying someone else to call a bunch of phone numbers, that's very costly. But there are some free tools. So in fact, Ann Glusker, who was at Group Health when she was there, she needed to do a survey, and this was an internal site only. But she used SurveyMonkey. I think she even had some incentives to encourage people to respond to her survey like it was a free scone or party or something like that. I think maybe she made a pie. And then she publicized it using her intranet news. So if you have a newsletter, you can publicize your survey that way. You can pay for ads if you'd like to, but maybe you have an internal publication like a community calendar that you do in print, or even bookmarks that you have in your branches. You could put ads for your survey on those publications and then distribute it via email, as I mentioned previously. They had 30% participation in their survey there at Group Health. That's an excellent number. That proves statistical significance. Anything above about 12% is fantastic. So don't expect 100% participation. If you get around 20, you're going to have great numbers to work with. So give me a smile. You see the little emoticons with the smiley face. Give me a smile if you know what I'm talking about when I say that prior to this work, I think we had designed our site for staff. So we'd focused on those 100 librarians a little bit more than we'd focused on the broader public audience. Does that sound familiar to anybody? There's one, a few, yeah. And because that's really easy to do because they're very vocal and they're an audience that is very close to us and we can hear them. That's great for your intranet. It's not as great for our public sites. So it's always good to keep that audience in front of us. So take another minute and jot down what questions you need to ask about who your audience is. Have you been making some assumptions? Are they too broad? Can you narrow it or find some target key audiences? Maybe it's funders, maybe it's stakeholders in the community, maybe it's a parent group. And do you have any questions for me at this time?
Well, okay, Helen is typing away, and so we're doing that. But while Helen's typing, that is kind of daunting to me because, I mean, we think we want to reach everybody in the, in our community. And so if we do it, is it impossible to design something that reaches everybody in our community, or is that just too generic?
Well, your home page is probably going to be as close as you get to reaching everybody in your community. I think that probably all of your sub-pages really do have a target audience when you think about it. So if you have a page dedicated to music resources, your target audience isn't everybody in your community. It's those who are listening, who want to listen to music. And do you get what I'm getting at here? So yeah, definitely the home page, and that's a bigger deal. But I think that if you really consider it, that when you get down to it, so for our research page, we realized that we weren't trying to get to students or their parents. We were really looking at adult learners and adult researchers. So we could narrow it down a little bit. So Helen, you said that you're not sure there's a reason for your public to look at your website. And is that because you don't have any resources on it? Why do you think that? Is there just not a lot of internet access in your community?
I see Helen typing away.
Yeah. So there you have a challenge, and I think the question that I would be asking your community, if you can get out in front of them, is why don't you look at the website? or did you know? So you're kind of like, this is an undiscovered thing. So you have to find out, why aren't people looking to the library's website for information? That'll be a question to ask.
And would you go back? I'm sorry, you're asking us to type something, and I can't remember what you asked us to type.
Oh, I was just wanting to know what appealed to you about this session, so that I know what's of interest to everyone who's joining.
I thought we did that, but we were looking. You were asking us about the website.
Oh, just recently. Sorry. Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, it was. Do you have any questions for me about audience?
Okay.
And if you wanted to share any ideas about how to reach your audience.
Well, I think we've gotten what we're going to get.
We've gotten it. So the next thing you have to ask yourself is, what are you going to say on this site? And what we found ourselves walking through were really the steps to developing a content strategy. So what is a content strategy? In other words, a content strategy is a plan for the creation, aggregation, delivery, and governance of useful, usable, and appropriate content in an experience. That's a very marketing definition, but it sounds like a dream job for a librarian, doesn't it? That's what we do. We organize useful and usable information and content. So in terms of project management, here's where your team starts identifying the work that needs to be done and who will do it. And that's called a work breakdown structure. So here's my work. I took a picture of this yesterday. But for the what, we start with what you know you're doing well, and then what you know you're missing based on the usage and customer feedback. So you've got to look at the usage of your website, and you have to get that customer feedback. We got a lot of feedback through Question Point. So people were always asking us. So I looked at our Question Point, and I did some searching, keyword searching in the history for what people couldn't find, what people are asking us for help with in finding. And I started keeping track of those, and I had some themes emerge. We also knew what people were using on our site or not using, just based on our usage statistics. And it's good to have something like this to bring to your team. So you'll note the shadow on that white pile. There's a bunch of papers stapled together in the middle of that picture. That is a printout of all the recommended websites we had and how much they were used. The numbers on those pages are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So from that 1,000 to the 150, even after that winnowing, we still were recommending 150 sites, and our customers just weren't using us as a recommendation. Back in the days of Yahoo Directory, that was great. We did that a lot, and that's not what customers were coming to us for anymore, so we needed to change our strategy. And those blue cards were the user themes that we'd been hearing about from customers and staff. And the pink cards were all the subjects that we'd had recommended. You see that we worked with these. We wrote new ones out. We scribbled on them. That's great. And I'll talk some more about the exercise that I used these cards in. And again, it was important for us to have defined that audience and keep it in front of us. Any questions about that? About what you're going to say and kind of getting a handle on that usage and customer feedback? Knowing what you want to keep.
You know what I would suggest is, my guess is, Krista, are you giving us your contact information at the very end? Okay.
I am.
You know, if you are shy or you think, oh, that's a dumb question, I just don't want to ask it, but I wouldn't mind, you know, write it down, keep it going now. I'll be very thrilled to have a question now, but don't hesitate to write it down. And then if you think about it, you can contact Krista later too. But please type if you have an issue. Okay?
Yeah, and as I'm talking, if you're thinking about a need or a demand or a theme that you know you need to address with your web content, jot that down for yourself now. Think about how to prioritize those things. Is there anything you know that you can let go of, that you don't need to keep on your site? We're inundated by information, and we're finding that the sites now with simpler information, less of it, and more flat design are the ones that are used the most. So write that down for yourself. Now, where are you going to say it? This part of your strategy could be limited limited depending on the media channels available to you. But there's a lot of social media that's free. So are any of you using social media? Give me a checkbox yes if you are using social media. Great. Glad to see that. Again, a lot of free work there that you can use. If not, don't forget drawing traffic to your site through your internal publications. So you might be sending out email newsletters already that can drive traffic back to your site. Any way that you're communicating already with your customers, you can drive traffic back to your site. So Helen, if you send email reminders for your holds or for overdue notices, that's a place where you can plug your site. Know which pages already get heavy use, because you can build on those. There's a reason why people are already going there, so you can build off and link from those pages. For some reason, on the Snow Isle site, the most popular page, besides the My Account page, is recently added items. And it gets so many hits, way above anything else. Everyone wants to know what we just added. And again, plan to your audience. Know who you're trying to reach. Find out where they are, because that's where you're going to want to put your message. So think about what channels you have access to besides your web pages. Again, social media, email newsletters, receipts that are printed from your machines. Are you linked to from other places in your community? School districts, community websites, chambers of commerce sites. Do you know about site heat mapping or how your users read your site? You can do some research on that. And I will tell you, they read from here to here, and over this is the last place their eyes hit, just like we read a book. That's still what people do. They tend to ignore what's over here and here because they think that's advertising. But you can still make use of that space if you understand the customer behaviors thinking of that as advertising. Do you want to reposition anything on your site for higher impact?
Helen has a question. Where is here?
Yes.
In other words, you look from here to here. Do you have a visual of that for us?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm pointing, but maybe I'm not. Ah, here we go.
Right now we have recording. So what do you mean?
Pointer? Well,
all I see is the word recording. Yes, we're all seeing the slide that simply says recording.
You're not seeing a pointer?
Yeah, we did, but I guess we don't quite understand how recording is working.
I'm just talking about I'm just talking about the location on your page. So this is your web page. This is where our eyes hit first. Kind of filter over here, and then they end up on the sidebars.
You know, this pointer is really helpful for me. I didn't get that either. Okay. Great. Okay, so would you use that pointer and say what you just said again, this time with the pointer? For the first people who are slow like me.
My apologies to everyone for not having that technology sorted out. So if this screen that you're looking at was your website, this whole thing, the first place someone's eyes land, and they know this by heat mapping, they've done usability research on this, is right about in here. And then the eye drifts into this area, and then the last place it goes is over here to the sidebar and maybe back to this sidebar. And Google is training us really well. We often just discount what's over here because we think it's ads, and it doesn't. We're training ourselves not to pay attention. So that's important to think about what you're going to put in this space or even in this space. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, and it would be really helpful because I can hear it. So would you just say that same thing you said again, because that will reinforce it for me. So you, at the very beginning, you go first to the upper left-hand corner. Is that correct?
That's right. Your eyes land first about right here on the first quadrant of the page, of a web page.
Yeah, good.
And then they kind of come down in here, and the last place they go is over to the sidebars. Okay.
Thank you. That's real important for me to remember.
Sure.
Thank you.
So then we need to get your content creators to work. And again, if you have a team of one, you're doing this with yourself. If you can at least pull in a group of volunteers from your community, that is great. And a brainstorming session is really what this is about. So you want to identify what content is the most important, and majority agreement is good enough. We started with a blank slate. So we had some pieces of our site, the header and the footer, that we could not mess with. But everything in between was up to us to fill. And this part of your strategy can also be called your message architecture, or the hierarchy of your communication goals. It should be very concrete and not abstract. So we started with the subject categories we'd agreed on. So we had taken those pink cards and laid them out and said, no, what's really important, keeping that audience in front of us. And we got those down to 12. And we had all of those user themes. I think there were at least 14 that I had printed out on the blue cards. And we kept looking at those and sorting them and combining them and saying, what's our purpose? Is this something that we need to address in this site or not? And we just got rid of some things because we can't do everything. And then we started putting what was most important about those subject categories and those themes in priority order, because those were the things we were going to address first. We didn't decide the layout of the screen. We just decided what was the most important information to convey. And we really wanted to promote our electronic resources, those things we're spending a lot of money on. So we wanted to put those front and center as opposed to recommended websites, which was external content. We had been highlighting that in the past, and we wanted to change that and flip it around. So this is a good starting place for the reluctance. And you have to know your role as a content coordinator. Even if you are working with a web team and there's a separate project manager that's really responsible for getting the work done, as a content coordinator or facilitator, you can emphasize the importance of what you want to say. So put those things in priority order. And then give the design or development team, so if you have someone else that's actually doing the work, you give them that hierarchy. I'll just make a note from a project management standpoint that simple task outlines and deadlines are very important. So having a pre-deadline and a post-deadline follow-up, reminding people of when you need this work done by and when you need it. And then thanking them for doing it after they did it, that's very, very important. It helps keep your team together for the future, and people will have a fun experience with it. So then you've got your content, you know what you want, you have it in the order, and then you turn it over to who's doing the work, or you're sit down to do the work yourself. And sometimes this is where that question of who is in the role of project manager comes to place. If you don't have one, then this could be you. We had one that I worked closely with, which was our web services manager I mentioned earlier. And we needed to protect our developers unless allowed access by that web services manager. Often the developers want to be protected. I learned that really early on. So really work with the person that we're supposed to instead of going directly to the developers and saying, hey, can you change this and this and this? But what they did for us is gave us a variety of prototypes. They gave us 3 or 4 different pages to look at. I think we had different people developing different ones. And again, I know that we have a lot of resources, but even if you do this yourself and make 3 different pages based on that content hierarchy, the stuff that you wanted to make sure was on that page, you can put those in front of other people, which is what we did, and we got feedback and votes about what worked the best from those 3 different prototypes or 3 different layouts of the page. Favorites will emerge. That's great. Just make sure to check those favorites against your goals and audiences. So it's not about what we personally like, but what the audience or our customers like. Habits are hard to break. Again, if you're doing redesign work, you want to do it for your intended audience, not for the staff. And that hierarchy becomes more clear as you go through this exercise. You'll have good feedback for a single prototype to move forward with. And as you move forward, you need a review team. So these would be the content creators, maybe a group of volunteers, a group of librarians, North Olympic has a team set that includes a cross-section of their organization. Ours had the librarians, a designer, developer, we had a project manager. Well, you can facilitate this. We did not meet in person for this. We could do this all online. We were just sharing images. And we ended up with something like this for our inner pages after our first prototype. And we just marked things up, as you can see. Oh, we liked this, but there were some things we didn't like here, and we wanted that list to scroll. Maybe this integrated search isn't in the right place. Let's move it around. And that became something like this. And then we had our page. And that's pretty much what we have today until we go to responsive design, which is in the works right now. And responsive design is the content that adjusts to display appropriately on a device with any screen size. And we're working on that. So this might work in that those boxes might restack to look right on a tablet or a phone, but other parts of our website are not ready for responsive design. So that's what we're working on right now. So do you have any questions about this? If you want to jot any notes about who might be your review team, who are you going to put these layout prototypes in front of? Is it the same as your project team? Bigger, smaller? This is where you need the buy-in and decision-making to happen, because it's got to move along. So you've got that work done, but you really have to get the approval. Any questions for me at this point?
I don't see anybody typing.
All right. So then you have to think about how often you're going to look at this again. And at the time that we had this, we did not look at our content very often. We didn't have a lot of people dedicated to the review. And this isn't just how much resource you have to reply, although that's very important about how often you're going to look at your web content. It also needs to change a lot, and it also has to do with user comfort. So we have to balance those messages of, oh, have fresh content all the time, keep it constantly changing, with still having a comfortable environment for our users. So consider previews if you're going to make any big changes. So put those prototypes on a preview link that you can link to from your regular page and let customers know that it's going to change to this, so they get a preview. It's also like a special Easter egg, so your customers feel like, ooh, they got to see it first. Consider making slight changes, and that's kind of what we're in the business of doing today with our Snow Owl site. We went from a bunch of images on the home page to one kind of banner image, and we're just making little changes at a time, maybe one per week instead of doing a whole new revision. And it's okay to change back. And my example of this is, and this happened I think early in last year, Google redesigned their Gmail, and they took away the trash can. Does anyone remember this? Give me a smiley face if you remember this. Especially in the mobile presentation. They did, yeah, thanks, Diane. I was hoping somebody remembered. So, and it literally was only like this for like a week or two, because I think everyone just freaked out. You could still get to the trash can, but you had to have that particular email selected that you want to delete. It wasn't just sitting there in the menu bar as it always had been before. And my mom called me and she said, what happened to the trash? What did Google do this time? And she was so upset about her Gmail. And I said, don't worry, Mom, it's going to come back. Because I knew that with that many people reacting, they were going to make it change back. And they did, and the trash can's back now, and everyone's happy. It's okay to make changes back. So if you think you're doing something great, and then you learn and you start getting feedback that that wasn't so great, change back. It's no big deal. So thinking about how often you're going to make these changes, thinking about that audience, this is your project schedule. And in your major project, you're going to have a timeline. So you're going to say, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to have our content strategy laid out. We're going to prioritize our work. We're going to do the design aspect. And that will have a certain timeline. But then ongoing, you want to have an operationalized timeline. You really don't want to just let your content sit there. You want to look at it regularly and make sure the right people are included in that review. So there's a difference between just doing the work the one time and then operationalizing the review of it. Any questions about that? Any notes you want to make for yourself? All right. And the fun part, is it working? Oh yeah, measurements. So here we are with measurement and evaluation. So did you have some baseline data? Oh goody, that's really important because evaluation is really hard without that baseline data. So I think you remember that early on I mentioned that we had a lot of usage statistics and we'd done a usability study that let us know the customers were lost. That's the information we want to go back to when we measure success. And this works even better if you had an idea of what success looked like at the beginning of your work. We didn't when I first did this. This is stuff that I've learned later or gotten better skills in doing. It's hard to define what success looks like. So are you trying to increase usage by a certain amount? Are you trying to increase the number of likes that you have on your Facebook page? Or are you really trying to have a certain amount of Facebook shares of your own posts? So all those are different measurements of success. So you really need to define for yourself what success looks like. And that's much easier to do when you go back to that purpose, that alignment with your strategy. What were your original goals? Have those in front of you when you think about what the measures of success are. So we did another usability study. And when I say usability study, I mean we invited members of the community into our office. It was a physical visit. And we asked them a series of questions. We asked the same questions at the beginning and the second time around. And had them perform exercises and try to find things on our site. And this was our second set of results. So they went from feeling lost and feeling like they didn't really get what they were supposed to do to saying, hey, this is set up, this is cheerful. I didn't even know you had this information. I think you're headed in the right direction. That looked like success to us. Some other things you can use are Google Analytics or the analytics from your content management system. We have our own homegrown content management system, but if you're using WordPress or Tumblr, they have their own analytics as well. If you have YouTube content embedded, they have a great analytics feature now too. It's not good enough just to have an account with Google Analytics. We did that for a long time and it was giving us page hits. You get to know goals and funnels in Google Analytics, and you might even add it to someone's job description. So we only had usage. Now we have set up some goals and funnels, and that really tells us about customer behavior. So that means if we put this on our site, did it get people to an article? So a measurement might have been from the home page to a hit on our SIP server indicating database authentication. So it's not just did they land on our research page, did they go somewhere else from there? And that really is an indicator of the customer behavior. So hits and usage aren't quite doing it. We had to get a little bit deeper. And we have someone now, and again, we have resources, but we have someone now who's dedicated to doing that kind of research with customers and with our analytics. So another usage we did have, it did jump. And the 63% increase is pretty indicative of a change for success. We don't know exactly why it jumped. We think it had to do with the changes we made. And we're going to say that was a good measure of success, but it would have been even better if we had understood the influence on customer behavior. So any questions about that? You want to jot yourself any notes for your action plan or ideas for measuring success in the project that you have in mind? Or questions for me?
I see Diane typing.
I would like to jump in here. If anybody else is getting some weird chipmunk voice from Krista, it sounds like there's a little network congestion going on. So she'll be silent for a little bit, and then it's trying to catch up the audio, which speeds everything up. So apologies for that.
And it just takes a while sometimes for the comments to pop up when people type. So it'll come. Oh, there we go. What was the key change that resulted in the increase is what Diane says.
Right. So I might sound like a chipmunk in real life, Jeremy. Sorry about that. Hopefully this sounds a little better. We think, Diane, that's the question we didn't really ask ourselves. We think the key change was going from a list of resources that wasn't particularly organized to this and 30 subject categories to the boxes of just 12 subject categories on a much simplified page. We think that was the change that resulted in the increase. That was the change that we made between the two time periods that our usage was measured. And again, I'm saying that today, looking back, it would have been even better if we had understood and tried to influence customer behavior. So if we had objectives around driving traffic from the home page to a specific resource, that probably would have been a better measurement of success. We're happy with a 63% increase in usage, don't get me wrong, but we didn't have the best understanding, and I think that the question you ask is a very important one to ask of yourselves. Does that answer your question, Diane?
There
okay.
it goes.
So that was our evaluation, and then the usability studies have become operationalized, and we're making adjustments. And again, I've mentioned responsive design, and that's where we're headed next. You have some resources. I talked about these measurements and understanding value. The Pew Internet studies are very, very good for understanding how customers are using public libraries, and then to some extension how they're using library websites. And WebJunction has some great information about surveying. Carolyn mentioned what survey tools might be useful, and I think, was it Aniwa that did something recently about doing successful surveys? And if you're thinking about projects for your site, I think, Carolyn and Jeremy, you probably know more than I do, the state library just announced their digital literacy grant. So if you're thinking of a way to incorporate education and information and communications technologies into your site, there may be some grant money available from the state library for that. And I think they're awarding up to $7,500 to 10 different libraries. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. The other thing, too, is that for smaller libraries that are in the state of Washington, and I think almost everybody here who's on is either a member of or has done it, but that the statewide project we have for Library Now, that also makes your your websites mobile friendly. So that's part of the reason that we did it. Is it for lots of folks don't have the resources to do responsive program or haven't managed to get your websites into. That is what the program does for us, does for small libraries, and that's why it makes your sites at least mobile friendly.
I would like to
Library Now
interrupt.
Yeah.
Sorry, it doesn't actually make your site mobile friendly, Carolyn. It's an app that allows you to access many of the features for your site, however, and it is very, very handy.
Okay.
There's an important difference between the two. I wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Jeremy. I always appreciate that.
So the state library has a subscription to the Library Now app available, which puts some of your content out there for mobile users. And Library Spotlight from OCLC, does give you, you can do mobile-friendly location and hours pages. So you plug in some information about your library into an OCLC form, and they can create a mobile-friendly site that you can link people to. And it is responsive design. So that's Library Spotlight with OCLC is another resource. And Jeremy's just put the information for Library Now up. And we have about 10 minutes left. So let's see, I have some slides for discussion if you want to. If you're not convinced that you need to have your site ready for mobile, I did want to show you this slide from Pew. And I love the Pew research. Our customers are going mobile, so you'd better be. And that's one reason why the state library is supporting us with offering Library Now. It's a good idea to position ourselves with resources that have responsive design sooner than later. And then we'll be ahead of the game when it comes to all of these people coming to us through their phones and smartphones. And goodness knows what will be next year.
Well, I'd like to also bring up another reason, is that in addition to all these phones, increasingly folks who don't have a lot of money are skipping right past desktop and laptops. They just can't afford that. They can't afford a cable net subscription, but they can and they are affording cell phones. I mean, that's become a priority for everybody. I mean, and the fact that Verizon stores and AT&T stores are popping up at every strip mall ought to tell us that too. So it's just one of those places we just have to play. I can't stress that enough. How you do it, I do think your web pages need to be web friendly or mobile friendly, I guess.
Great. So if you feel like you've sat through this webinar and you've been there and done that, there are other things you can focus on. You could do a content audit. A content audit is it's the activity of checking all of the content on your website and compiling it into a big list and then evaluating it for how organized it is. Does it have the voice of your organization? Is it appealing to the right audience? It's the nitty-gritty kind of marketing stuff that ensures that the attributes of your site align with the messaging and content relevancy and audiences that you have determined as your focus and priority. You can't do too much audience research. You can create persona, and these are all things that you probably have books in your library about how to do. You can do social media campaigns. There's a good book called The Librarian's Nitty-Gritty Guide to Social Media that has a lot of information about how to do a social media campaign for your library. Does anyone else have other ideas of what you can work on if this has all been done? Or any other resources they want to share? Something else that we have is a services audit. This is a list of everything that we're doing online and the purpose, the goals. You can see it's pretty blank. We need to go in and fill that in and really have a good understanding of why we're doing everything that we do online. Why did we choose this database? Who was the audience that we chose it for? Who owns it? Who's responsible for making informed decisions about that content and communicating their value? So this is something that we are working on now. And here's some resources that I used when I was doing the work. And finally, my contact information. Oh, and the contact me isn't just the title of the slide, it is a command, not just a slide title. I really want to hear from you. I have a lot of resources and things in my mind and have worked with a lot of people here at Snow Isle Libraries and in the community, and I'd really love to hear your experience and share experiences with you. So with that, do you have any other final questions for me or comments or resources that you want to share with the group?
Well, I'll fill in while folks maybe are thinking and typing. I really do think as librarians we should make use of every resources, and we usually are going to, And I guess what I'm saying is she means it. Librarians really do. I think I've never had a librarian, and I go out and ask for help all the time to various projects, and people, if they can't do it, they refer me to somebody who can. So don't hesitate to, contact Krista and ask for a lead, or ask for a way to, to get, maybe talk through your, maybe a 10-minute phone call will talk you through your problem. So thank you, Krista. We appreciate that.
Yeah. You're welcome. I look forward to hearing from all of you. And if there's nothing else, then I'm going to say goodbye.
I think Carolyn was saying something, but her microphone's turned off.
Carolyn was just going to say, forgot to take it on. But thank you. Thank you for this. We really appreciated it. And I know there'll be lots of folks, and I'm talking to all the people who listen asynchronously. We do mean you as well, because there are lots of folks who come in and listen to this later. We encourage you to give Krista an email and get in touch with her as well. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Krista. I learned lots. So, and that'll help me with my work with my rural small libraries. I appreciate it. So we'll chat with you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. The recording won't stop until, well, it